Okay, now let's turn our attention to the other function I mentioned at the start of this tutorial, i.e. splitting events. So we'll continue our investigation of how we work with and manipulate events so that we can adjust them to suit our project's requirements. We'll look at how we split events and the implications this has on our project. First though, I'll explain what I mean by splitting events, and indeed how this is actually achieved. When we do split an existing event on the timeline, we are effectively creating new events that function independently from the original full-length event. With one full-length event split into two, I can edit or manipulate each newly created separate event independently. We can appreciate, therefore, that splitting any event on the timeline automatically makes a new endpoint of the newly created first event, and of course, there will be a new starting point for the newly created second event. I'll show you this in action. First of all, we'll select this timeline event. Notice that at present it's at its full length. So one way to split this event is to initially move your cursor to the desired split point, here for example, and then up on our menu strip, select Edit and roll down to Split. We'll look at Trim Start and Trim End in later tutorials. Well, clicking on Split there now creates two new independent events that can be individually selected and dragged to new positions on our timeline, or if your project dictates, they could be dragged onto a new track. Well, that is splitting one event on one track. I'll just move this newly split created event on this track to a new position underneath the event on track 1 just by dragging it. Now I will have to do this a couple of times so that I can move the audio component onto a separate new track. Okay, but once done, this newly created split event is now on track 3 and track 4. And now if I select the track 1 event, the cursor locks to that position. Well, I'll then go up to Edit once more and then down to Split. And this splits our track 1 and 2. Now, because the events on track 1 and 2 are at a different position than the newly created event on track 3 and 4, this will of course only split anything that the cursor is covering, i.e. the event on track 1 and 2. So I'll go to the Undo button and I'll move our created track 3 and 4 events so that they are below tracks 1 and 2. So again, if I select the track 1 event, as we saw a moment ago, the cursor locks to that position, and if I go to Edit once more and then down to Split, notice now that the track 1 event is split, as we would expect, but not the lower tracks below. Okay, I'll just go up to the Undo button and click on there. I'll have to do it a few times to go back to where we were to make this top event complete again. Now, if I don't select an event by clicking away first of all, and then placing the cursor at an appropriate split point right underneath our events, and then execute the same action, by going up to Edit and then dropping down to Split once more, well now notice that both events are split at that cursor position. And of course, because we've got multiple events created from this one original full-length event, then I can drag each new event to wherever I like. Okay, so that's an example or two of how we split a single event, and how if we've got multiple events on our timeline, then by not having an event selected, well this means all the events at that particular cursor position get split. Okay, we'll finish up here then for this tutorial and we'll move forward.